Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. I'm Safiyyah, your host. Today, I'm speaking to Maskwa David Alexanderson. He's a First Nations Cree Muslim who works for Justice for All Canada. He speaks on Indigenous justice and human rights. He's joining me today to speak about the parallels between the Palestinian people and Indigenous peoples of North America. Maskwa, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam. So, Maskwa, I want to ask you, as we've watched this genocide unfold for the last, 3 years or so. I mean, of course, it has continued far more than the 3 years, but
Yes.
it was pretty intense over the last 3 years. Has this struck you and made you think back to the Indigenous peoples of North America as well?
Yes, because it's not just over 100 years ago. Land was basically, they said this is open land. This is a place where, but they would still give us treaties, false intentions on our rights, and they restrict us. And over time, they would keep restricting us. They would take, for example, where I'm from, they would take 3 reserves, put it into one. Where does that sound familiar? In Palestine. You take a group of people, throw them into a place like Gaza, West Bank, behind checkpoints. It really connected well to me because I had children who also were affected by seeing all this news about all of this horrific of the Palestinian people, which is, again, what did media say about us in the past? We're people in the bush, we're animals, we're subhuman.
Yeah, savages, right?
They were savages. Yes. What were they saying in the early days of October? They were saying they were savages. They were unaliving children and all these horrible things. To even the fact that my children who are Indigenous said, Dad, what's going on about this? Right? And me knowing about colonialism and the effects of it, I just saw literally propaganda 101, right? Make the people less human so you can kill them, right? If you make them less human, people will not feel sympathy. Over at least 150,000 dead now, right? And the world is still not in uproar. You know what I mean? Because of the direct media attack on the people to make them less. So I see the direct parallels compared to Indigenous people, how they refer to us as animals, as savages.
Maskwa, you used the term colonialism. Can you speak to us a little bit about that and how it relates to Palestinians and Indigenous peoples for someone who might not be aware?
So when you look at settler colonialism, the main aspect of it is what? To take the land from the people, displace them, create policies in place that restricts them, their access, basically genocide. In Canada, they called it, according to Truth and Reconciliation, cultural genocide. It is the removal of the history of the people by taking away our languages. They put us in residential schools, punish people for speaking the language, for practicing the culture. They must come to terms with their new Christian identity. Where in Palestine, they basically put them into corners, like places like Gaza, restrict their access to things. The key aspect, I'll tell you, is when I look at my Indigenous card. My Indigenous ID card says where I'm from, my land, my tribe. It basically gives identity. And in the early days, these were used to basically identify Indigenous people. What did the Palestinian people have? The Palestinian ID card.
Yes.
They have one for Gaza. They can't leave Gaza without permission, without permits. Just back 30, 40 years ago in Canada, people need permission to leave reserves. We have barbed wires still on the outskirts of some reserves. You can go Google barbed wires on reserves. These were not meant just for a fence or a wall. These were places to let us know that we were not welcomed outside. And the same for our people, our fellow Indigenous people in Palestine. Big walls, guns, basically restricting their movements, controlling their media. This is what colonialism is. It's basically a foreign power coming in to basically control the Indigenous people and put their ways, their beliefs. They all follow the same aspect. From 150 years, even 300 years ago, different colonialistic behaviors are all just copy and pasted. And this, our Palestinian brothers, it's been real quick. Yes, they've been dealing it since the Nakba and way before, right up from the early 1900s when they were planning this, right? And the removal of their weapons in the 30s, right? Taking away things from them. They can't be able to fight. So when the Nakba came, they had no weapons. What did the state of Israel have? They had planned this out, the Nakba. They created cells to prepare for this. And then you have a population who has no weapons anymore. They were taken away in the 30s by the British and basically restricted. So this is all colonialistic behaviors so that they can control the land, control the way, basically genocide for our Palestinian brothers in Canada, the cultural genocide.
I'm thinking about like the destruction of the olive trees and how there's a parallel with like the buffalo and, and maybe other other things as well,
basically,
right?
the buffalo were almost put out to stink.
Yes.
They controlled us by, for example, taking over our lands, killing our bison.
Yes.
In Palestine, controlling their farm, their crops, including the olive tree, right? Restricting the movement. They control the food supply that comes out to the point that we have to use apps like No Thank You to make sure that we're getting ethically sourced, items. And unfortunately, it's very hard nowadays because, again, they've taken away the rights of the Palestinian people.
Is there a general awareness amongst Indigenous peoples that, the Palestinian cause is similar to theirs or has parallels with theirs?
Yes.
Of course, it's not exactly the same.
Yes,
right?
Of course not.
Yes.
What is the key aspect? Land stolen. You want to restrict they're able to practice, to being able to understand their culture, right? One of the things that I learned by speaking, I did a lot of dawah on TikTok, and then I started doing TikTok live speaking to people from Palestine. And when people would show me their key, and they live in Brazil, they live in America, the symbol of their home. When it comes to the Indigenous people, right? We talk about the times when our lands were very expanse. And then through treaties, which were basically just ways to basically control, because they never honored the treaties. There are still hundreds of treaties that have not been honored today in Canada. And with Palestine, international laws, and they say things in the UN and they never take effect, or they're never used. And that's unfortunate.
Maskwa, Muslims care very much about the Palestinian cause. They are not as aware about Indigenous peoples and their cause.
Yes.
What would you like to see amongst Muslims who understand the Palestinian cause towards the Indigenous people?
The key aspect is, as a Muslim living in Canada, part of the fault is, of course, the Canadian government. People come to Canada here. This is the land of the free.
Yes.
It's a peaceful country. When I speak to people about the residential school, they're like, that happened in your country?
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know.
No, I speak to a mosque and I ask everybody to put their hand up. I spoke at a mosque in last September. About 8 people put their hand up out of about 300 people. What is our responsibility when we come to our land? We're supposed to honor the rules in the land that we're on. Not the colonial-based system that Canada set up. It's the Indigenous people. So it's our duty to learn about the Indigenous people. My work with Justice for All as the Indigenous Engagement Coordinator is to go to mosques, go to Islamic businesses, go to Islamic events, talk about my story into Islam, and also talk about the Indigenous people, from residential schools to the missing Indigenous women. The fact that we are 7 times more likely to go missing. And there's campaigns like the Moosehead campaign, right? It's a campaign to teach men to not commit violence onto the Indigenous women.
I was wondering why you were wearing that. I was curious about it, actually.
Yes. So this is what we call the Moosehead.
Okay.
And it's a campaign based out of BC. Because of colonialism, our men become violent towards their women with alcoholism and drugs. So this campaign is to bring awareness to a few things. One of the important things is about the missing Indigenous women. They go missing from the Tears of Highway, which is a highway where many women have gone missing. And across Canada, we all have stories to tell from each reserve about missing women. And they say, oh, well, they're into drugs, they're into alcohol. It's their fault. She'll come back eventually, right? And these are children too, some of them. So this campaign also teaches men like me to be stewards, because we're supposed to be responsible for our women. We're supposed to honor our women. So it's to bring back and restore the honor to Indigenous women. That's what the Moosehead campaign has taught me and what I've learned.
I think another thing that upsets me is the fact that they don't have, that drinking water is not freely accessible.
Yes,
to Indigenous people, depending on where they live and what reserve
there
they're
are
on.
still water drinking advisories in over 30 reserves still.
Yes.
And the previous administration, Trudeau, said that they would have this all done in his term. Now we're into Carney, and I hope that we can get this number down. But back to Muslims, we need to also be there for our Indigenous brothers.
Yes.
Because across from India to the Rohingya, the Irway, they're all Indigenous people. As Muslims are going through some form of colonialism, and they know how it feels. That's why our connection to the Palestinian brothers is very connected, right? So as Muslims, we should always want to learn. And that's what my job is to do, is to go speak to brothers and sisters in a mosque, educate them, so that when there's, I guarantee you, we're not far away from probably another day, another time where maybe more mass graves outside residential schools are found. And instead
just
of
like in Palestine, where they found so many mass graves, right? The same thing.
So when something happens in like Palestine, people go out, they protest in the thousands.
Mm-hmm.
When Indigenous people protest, I've been to most of them, and they're like a few hundred.
Mm-hmm.
I hope in 10 years' time that through my speaking, through my educating of people, that when something happens to the Indigenous, an issue comes up from, like last year we had so many deaths on one reserve and RCMPs were responsible. If the Muslim population here in Canada learned about the stuff, maybe instead of having like 50 or 60 people at an event in Winnipeg, you might have 500.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And colonialistic behavior and governments will not change if they don't see the pressure that they need to fulfill,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that's the big issue, is that, so you need more people, activism, learning, understanding, right? If the whole world sided with the Palestine movement in their entirety, it would be over in months.
Yes. What does justice look like for you, for Indigenous peoples, for Palestinians, for all people everywhere?
The right to self-determination, the right to the control of their land,
Mm-hmm.
the right to have their land back. And for example, an Indigenous tribe like mine, where you put 3 people into one land, now we can't put the people back because sometimes they built cities on our area and other places in Canada. They built whole cities on reserves, but what justice is for me is give them back their rights, Indigenous rights. The status card that is given to me, my Indigenous status card, which gives me health benefits, not all the time, but it gives me more benefits than most Indigenous. Only a few 100,000 out of the million have it,
Mm-hmm.
right? In terms of the Palestine movement, the right to their land. Palestine is Palestine. It will never be Israel. That is the Palestine people's home and their right to self-determination, the right to make their rules of land. Now, they do have, unfortunately, people there, so they have to work. But the right to justice is self-determination. The right to be able to stand on and have their own voice in the UN, for example. Like a real voice, not not something that's backed by the state of Israel.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and when all these colonizers came into the land, they said that the land was empty, right?
Yes.
This is part of the church doctrine, that the land was empty and they were coming to fill it.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with Palestine.
Yes, and
they said there were no Palestinians there.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah.
Then why did they spend, since the Balfour Declaration, planning it?
Mm-hmm.
Why would they remove their weapons in the 30s?
Yeah.
Why would they do all this if the people that aren't there, when there is proof of the history, there's people with ID cards, there are people that have items, stamps saying Palestine, right? It is, again, to control the masses, the media. Like in Canada, we're not even 1% of the media Indigenous,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're 0.5 roughly of the media coverage.
Mm-hmm.
So when something happens, think about it, if thousands of Canadian women went missing, we'll say white Canadians went missing, it would be all over the news. We need to do something. Thousands of Indigenous women have gone missing and nothing's ever been talked about it. So my hope is in 10 years' time that when someone goes missing, that a group of people go out instead of 10 or 30. I've been to some of these vigils where there's only 10 or 30 of us. A Muslim could be able to say, hey, there's a vigil going on and 300-400 people come. The government's going to be like, well, why is there so many there? The government watches everything. So,
Maskwa, I wish you all the best. May your work spread far and wide, and hopefully Muslims and Indigenous people can come together to bring about justice for everyone.
Inshallah.
Justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Muslim Media Hub, the new home of Let the Quran Speak.
Here we spread positivity and good. We help people experience the beauty of Islam and help them appreciate and understand Muslims.
This beautiful building we purchased at cost $2.3 million.
Yeah, we've already raised a third of that money, and with your help, inshallah, we can pay off the rest.
So we're looking for people who can give $1,000 each. If you can be part of the select group, that's amazing.
Otherwise, just please give whatever you can. Every dollar counts.
It's our collective responsibility to share the message of Islam with our fellow human beings. Please help us continue this good work.
It's a sadaqah jariyah, something that will continue to be a benefit to the Muslim community long after Safiyyah and I are gone.
Please support our work at muslimmediahub.com.
Your support is zakat eligible and tax deductible.
May Allah bless you and your loved ones today and always. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.